Hello. Hello.
झालं का ऑन?
हा झालं.
Okay.
करू शकता तुमचं.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So today we are going to start with week 3, which is going to be arrays. So firstly, मला confirm करायचं आहे की माझा voice clearly सर्वांना येतोय. So you can just react.
हा येतोय.
Okay. तर मग आपण स्टार्ट करूया. सो आतापर्यंत आय थिंक आपण सर्च आणि सॉर्टिंग बघितलंय. सो टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विथ अरेज. नाव आपला टॉपिक आहे DSA. सो DSA इज डेटा स्ट्रक्चर आणि अरे हा वन ऑफ द मोस्ट बेसिक आणि मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट टाईप ऑफ डेटा स्ट्रक्चर आहे. सो जेव्हा आम्ही सेकंड इयर मध्ये होतो वी हॅड लर्न्ड अरे आणि आम्ही त्यानंतरचे भरपूर प्रॅक्टिकल जे दुसरे डेटा टाईप्स पण आहेत ते आम्ही अरेने इम्प्लिमेंट केले होते. सो फर्स्टली आपण थोडंसं बघूया की आपल्याला बेसिकली अरेची नीड का असते. सो दिस इज जस्ट माय बॉइलर प्लेट कोड ऑन VS कोड. जस्ट अ मिनिट. सो आता इन केस जर आपल्याकडे समजून घ्या की n नंबर ऑफ स्टुडंट्स आहे आणि त्यांचे आपल्याला मार्क्स सेव्ह करायचे आहे, तर आपण कसं करणार? आपण व्हेरिएबलला इनिशियलाइज करू and then we can save n number of variables and marks for various students. तर normally जर आपण असं करू, so this is not a very great logic. ठीक आहे. So in this case array comes in picture. So arrays basically काय आहे? So there are three basic things that you need to know about array. First is they are a linear data structure. आता जर हा तुमचा मेमरी ब्लॉक आहे in your computer, if this is your memory block, the array is saved as one memory block. It is saved as a continuous memory. Okay, unlike linked list, तर linked list मध्ये काय असतं की मेमरी जे डिफरंट लोकेशनला सेव्ड असतात. पण इन केस ऑफ अरेज जे आहे ते कंटिन्युअस ब्लॉक ऑफ मेमरी आहे. दे आर अ लिनियर डेटा स्ट्रक्चर. So these are the two important points. They occupy contiguous memory, they are linear, and third thing is same data type. तर आता तुम्ही आता इकडे जे सिंटॅक्स दिले ते अरे इनिशियलायझेशनच आहे. सो तुम्ही बघत असाल इंट अँड देन अरे नेम. सो व्हॉट इज दिस इंट? इंट इज अ डेटा टाईप. सो अरे ओके आपण CPP बद्दल बोलतोय. बाकीच्या लँग्वेजेस मध्ये लाईक जावास्क्रिप्ट और पायथन array can have multiple elements with different data types, but I'm strictly talking about CPP. Here, array are always going to have the same data type. So here we have initialized an integer array, and so it's going to have only and only numbers. So हे 3 points लक्षात ठेवायचे असतात array बद्दल. आता आपण बघणार आहोत there are 3 different ways to initialize or implement an array. So I'm going back to VS Code. तर असं नॉर्मली तुम्ही 2-3 मुलांचे मार्क्स सेव्ह करू शकता. बट इफ यू नीड टू सेव्ह फॉर एंटायर क्लास फॉर मोर देन 100 पीपल, तर मग कसं करणार? तर आधी आपण बघूया द मोस्ट सिम्पल आणि बेसिक इम्प्लिमेंटेशन ऑफ अरे. सो आय एम गिव्हिंग अ डेटा टाइप. सो आय एम वॉन्ट अन इंटिजर अरे, द नेम ऑफ द अरे अँड स्क्वेअर ब्रॅकेट. आणि या स्क्वेअर ब्रॅकेटमध्ये आपण देतो द साईज ऑफ अरे. ओके. सो जो कंटिन्युअस ब्लॉक ऑफ मेमरी जो अलोकेट होणार आहे तो किती पार्ट्स मध्ये डिवाइड असणार आहे, ती ही संख्या आहे, दॅट इज 50. सो दिस इज हाऊ नॉर्मल कॉमन आपण अरेला इम्प्लिमेंट करतो किंवा इनिशियलाइज करतो. आता ही पहिली मेथड झाली. आता देर आर अदर वेज इज वेल. सो इफ आय वॉन्ट टू आय एम गिव्हिंग अ पर्टिक्युलर साईज टू दिस अरे. नाव हे स्क्वेअर ब्रॅकेट्स मध्ये मी साईज दिली आहे. अँड देन इफ आय वॉन्ट टू मी जे नंबर्स आहे ते अरेची इनिशियलाइज करू शकते लाईक दिस. नाउ इन दिस वे आपण अरेचे जे इंडेक्सेस आहे त्यांना इनिशियलाइज केलंय आणि इकडे आपण फक्त साईज इनिशियलाइज केली. जर आपण इकडे कोणती व्हॅल्यू जर आपण बघायचं म्हटलं तर इकडे गार्बेज व्हॅल्यू स्टोअर असेल. बट हिअर वी हॅव गिव्हन अ साईज अँड ऑल्सो वी हॅव मेन्शन्ड द व्हॅल्यूज फॉर दॅट. ऑल्सो द थर्ड वे, Now this is very similar to what we are doing. So here you do not need to give the size of the array. तुम्ही डायरेक्ट जे आहे जे एलिमेंट्स आहे त्यांना प्लेस करू शकता. आणि आता ही जी array आहे ती साईज 3 ची आहे. So because I've given 3 elements, याची size आहे 3. So like this there are 3 different ways of initializing array. तर आतापर्यंत आपल्याला समजलंय की array का कामात येतं, आपण त्याला इनिशियलाइज कसं करायचं. Now moving to another important part, which is input output. तर arrayला आपण आपल्या सिस्टीम मध्ये ऍज अ इनपुट कसं घ्यायचं, अँड इफ वी वॉन्ट टू प्रिंट array आपण कसं करू शकतो. लाईक बिफोर दॅट आपण एकदा इंडेक्सिंगच्या कॉन्सेप्टलाही बघूया. सो नॉर्मली मोस्टली कोडिंग लँग्वेजेस मध्ये इंडेक्सिंग 0 पासून सुरू होते. इंडेक्सिंग बेसिकली मीन्स द लोकेशन, द पोझिशन. आता ही जी माझी array ह्या इमेज मध्ये आहे त्यामध्ये टोटल 6 एलिमेंट्स आहे. But if you see, I can access the index until 5 because we start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. So हमेशा indexing 0 से शुरू होगी and it's going to just basically tell a location, a position. So now we are going to see how with this concept we can input an array and also we can print an array. So जास्त easy तो basically अभी retrieve करना ही होगा. So we'll first see how we can print a particular array. So I'm removing all of this. We'll try to print this second array on our screen. So how do we access a particular element of array? So I'm writing my cout statement, and with the help of the square bracket itself, we can access our element. Now, for instance, if I want to access the element which is on this location, which is on index 1, I simply write that index and I can print that. So if I run this code here, so you can see it has returned a value which is present at this position. Now simply if I want to print all the elements of this array, I just need to iterate like this from 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. But we are developers, so we need to write a logic for that. So the most basic thing that we do is we implement a for loop. So we know that first we need to give a starting condition. So our starting condition is 0 because our indexing starts from 0. Now, what is going to be our ending position? So, as I told you, this is a array of size 5. So, and its indexing is from 0 to 4. So, I can simply write I less than 5, which is basically the size, and I plus plus, because we want to increment, right? And then we can simply print all the elements. I'm writing the cout statement, and here we'll have I. So with this simple logic, we can print the entire array. Now let's run and see if we get our elements right. So as you can see, all the elements are printed here. Now one more thing, we want to make our code more generalized. So what we can do is we can first calculate the size for any array that we are given. So let me tell you how we can do that. So I'm initializing a variable first, and we are going to use the size of function. So firstly, we are going to use the size of function. We are going to give the name of the array here. And I'm going to show you what happens when I just use the size of function itself. Now let's try and print this value of n. What do we get when I print this n, okay? So the value that I'm getting basically here is 20. I think I should have commented this loop. Okay, let's do it again. So I'm getting the value as 20, but of course the size of our array is not 20 as you can see. So what is this? So this function is basically returning the byte size, the byte size. So basically integer occupies 4 byte of space. So that is why 5 into 4 is returning 20. So to avoid this, what we need to do is we need to divide this whole thing by size of integer because the data type of our array is also integer. So when we do this, we get our correct output. Now let's see that. Now this time we got the correct size. So every time what we'll do is we are going to print this n. I mean, we are going to calculate this n. And when we use this for loop again, we are not going to mention here the size by like 5 or any other number. We are going to mention here n. And this is the standard loop that is used everywhere, starting with 0 and I less than n. Okay. So by using the same loop, we can also input our array. So I'll just take this loop, I'll copy it here above. Now I'm not initializing these values beforehand. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to this time take cin because I want to take input from the user. We are using the same loop. We are not changing anything about it. And this is how we can take input and then we can simply print that same input. Now let's see here. So if I want to give some input for this array, and here the array is printed. So this is how we can take input and output in array. Now this was all about the basic concepts of array. Now moving ahead, I want to discuss a very interesting topic considering arrays. Just a minute. So it is array passed by reference. Okay, so you can pass an element, an object in two ways. First is by value and second is by reference. So when we pass something by reference, we pass the true copy. In that, what I'm trying to say is, just a minute. So if I write here a function, so let's make a normal function. Now, if I make a function and I'm going to pass any number to it, and I'm going to change that value of that number, let's say I'm just going to add 10 to that number. And if I print this a here, let me comment this out first. And let's see, I'm going to pass a variable here. I'm going to pass a number to this function. So function, and let's pass, let's say 5. Okay. And I also save the value of this 5 in advance. So int a is equal. And now when I print this a, what do you think will be the value? The value will be updated and will be printed here. So let's check that. So if I run here, I hope you can see this implementation part, or I should first clear. Okay. So you can see an updated value of A is printed, but now let me comment out this cout and let me print A here in my main loop. So when I do that, the value that I get is 5. So I pass the same A here for this function. Okay, if I pass this A here for the function, but the value is not really updated. When I print the a here, it's 5 again. Why do you think this happens? Because we have passed a value here. We are not passing any reference of this a variable here. Okay. So now let's see what happens in the case of array. So let's remove this first. So this was the array that we had before. Now, what do you think if I simply want to print the array content? So I'm just initializing again. What do you think will be printed on the screen when I just write the name of the array? When I do this, So there is a specific address that is getting printed here. Um, so there's a specific address that is getting printed here. There is no value that is getting printed. That is because the name of the array itself is a pointer. So the name of the array is a pointer. So whenever we pass the name of the array to a particular function, it is passed by reference. Now let's use the same function here. I'm going to just write the name of the array. When I write this, I'm passing my array by reference. So if I make some changes in this array here, the changes will also reflect here in the main loop. So this is a very important point to remember about array. Also, another interesting thing that I want to show you is now I have passed this array here. Okay. Now, what if I want to print my array with the help of this loop? I'm just going to simply use the same logic that I was doing before, that I want to print the elements of the array. I'm using the same size of function and everything, but this time it won't work as it did before. So this is the logic that we saw for getting the size. I'm using the same thing, and if this time I try to print my C out, the value of n, first let's call this function and give it the value of our array. Okay, now we can see. So as you can see, I got some warning, but a value is surely printed and the value is 1. But that's not really the right size of our array. So why this happens? Because again, the reason is the same thing. We have passed not a value, not a array, but a pointer to this function. And we do not need the size of the pointer here. We basically need the size of the entire block. So this function does not work when we write it in this part. So always, whenever you are passing an array to a function, so there are many times, even on lead code problems, whenever array is initialized, always the size needs to be passed to the function like this. Because this function just has a reference of our array. It does not have the entire array. It is not passed by values. Okay. So we have understood this point. Now let's move ahead. Now let's do a little activity, a little problem. Let's do a problem of reversing an array. So I think I should have not removed that array anyway. So let's first initialize an array. And what we need to do is we need to simply reverse the elements of this array and print it again. So how are we going to do this? So there are basically two approaches for this problem. One is when we can use a completely different array and then we can reverse this array. And the second approach is the 2-point approach. But let's think about it. If we use the approach where we are using a second array, we are copying the elements of this array in reverse manner there. So we are using a lot of space. Yes, and also in programming, space complexity, time complexity always matters. So let's see if we can do better with the 2-point approach. So what is 2-point approach? So I'll just first tell you briefly what we are going to do, and then we'll see how to implement that logic. So for that logic, what we basically do is we use 2 pointers. First is the start and second is the end. And then we swap both the numbers. And this is how we obtain the reversal. So I think I just don't need to calculate or just call any other function. We can just see that logic here. So I'm initializing a start for my first element. So in start is going to be 0. So these pointers are basically indexes. I'm not talking about actual pointers that are used in CPP. These are just indexes. And end is going to be n minus 1. So I don't have my n here, so I'm just going to write 4 here. So I've initialized start and end. We are going to use a while loop. And what should be the condition? The condition should be that start is less than end. So what we are doing, we are going to move ahead from here. So start is going to get updated, going to increase, and end is going to decrement. So we are channelizing our loop from start until start is less than end. Okay, and then we are going to swap. So this is an inbuilt function, or else you can write that 3-line code to swap as well. So start with the end. And then after that, we need to increment start and we need to decrement the end. Also, here the mistake that I made was we are using an array. So here it's going to be array start. Okay. So array and the index which is start. Also here array and end. So the position is basically start and end. So with this logic, we can simply reverse our loop. Also, we can again write the same for loop to print it. The same logic that we used before. So let's see if the logic that we have written is right or do we get some errors. So no, we have really done a good job here. We have reversed the array. So with this simple logic, so basically I wanted to show you this problem to introduce the 2-point approach, because in many lead code problems, this approach is used of 2 pointers for many other applications. So there are many similar problems that you can do. So you can do linear search or even finding the biggest element with just using the for loop and comparing. So I think we have seen searching and sorting before. So I'm not including the part of searching, which is also a good array problem. Now I think let's move to the part which is the most amazing and the most interesting, that is lead code problems. So I've just covered very basic of array that you need to know. And now we'll see what is actually needed of us when we see the problems. So I want to go just a minute. Yes. So I think for this session, we'll try to solve these 2, 3 problems and see. So the first one is two sum. So already a solution is pasted here because I've already submitted this problem. But anyway, let's see this problem. This is a very classic array-based problem, but I think vector is used here. So what is vector? I'll just give a brief information about that. So vector is in very simple language a dynamic array. So you can so vectors are initialized in a little different way, but they are somewhat similar to array. They are just dynamically they can be implemented, and it's the same thing. It's only used here on lead code, so we need to submit in that format, but they are very similar to array. So let's see what is this two sum problem first. Now we are given an integer array. The name of the array here is nums. So it's an array and we are given separately a target variable. Now we have to find two numbers. we need to find two numbers which add up to this target. So if we look at this one, there is 2 and 7. So these 2 and 7 add up to 9. So we need to return the index of these two numbers. Now in the question, it's clearly mentioned that there's going to be only one possible solution. So what we need to do is we need to try the pairs. We need to try the numbers with other numbers. We need to make pairs and see if we get this 9. So this is the approach that we are going to use. So when I solved this question, I've used a nesting for loop. So we'll do it again here. Firstly, okay. So this is the question that we are doing where we need to find the index for the target. Okay. So coming here. So what I have done here, I've just taken the input and I have copied this template from LeetCode itself. This is the class and where we need to write our program. And this is just the input so that I can show you the implementation. Okay. So the approach that we are going to use is we are going to use a nested for loop to try all the combinations. So we want to try all the combinations and then see if we get the sum equal to that number. So here we are basically using a vector. So when we are using a vector, it's actually a little easier than array because we can calculate the size easily here. So I'm calculating the size of my nums here in my function itself with the help of this function, which is nums.size. So this can be used with vectors. It cannot be used with arrays. So that was something to note. Now, as I said, let's use nesting. Let's use two for loops here. For the first for loop, we are going to iterate through all the elements. So int I is equal to 0. The same loop that we have used, as I said, it's a very standard thing to write like this. And the inside loop, I'm going to start that loop from I plus 1. So I do not want to repeat the combinations. So we are starting from I plus 1. So for int j is equal to I plus 1. So as I said, let's start with I plus 1. And we are going to iterate this loop similarly till the end. So j less than n and j increment. Okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to compare if the submission adds up to our target. So even target is given here as an argument. Okay, that's fine. So we need to simply check if our nums I plus nums j leads us to the target. So why I'm starting this loop from I plus 1 is because we do not want to repeat the combinations. That is why we are doing it. Also, this is not the most like it's not the best approach because it is using nesting, and in this case what happens is because we are using nesting, the complexity becomes big of n squared, so that's not a very good complexity. But this is our first problem, I think, so I'm using this approach because it's easy to understand. And I think we can simply return the indexes if condition is true. Also, if only one possible solution is there, it's written in the question. So what we can do is we can simply return from here because there's only one possible solution, and if we find it, we can return. Yes. So I've returned the logic. This is the input. As you can see, I've taken the same array which was there on the lead code and I've written this to print. Now I'll run this part and we'll see if the logic that I've written here makes sense. So yes, as you can see, the indexes are 0 and 1, the one that I returned. I've basically printed it here with the help of this. And it's 9. The target is 9 and we have achieved 9. So it was a very simple question. Even if you want to, you can go to LeetCode and submit this much part and see. So I've already submitted that part. Now let's see the next question. Moving to the next question, I think we'll see this one later. Let's first see this, which is move zeros. So if we look at this question, again a very easy question. We are given a nums array. It's an array. It's going to contain number of zeros. This is going to be an array which has zeros in it. And what we need to do is we need to push these zeros at the end. So if you look at this example closely, I hope you can. These zeros are inside the array at any position. We need to move them at the end. So this is the only problem statement. It's very easy. So let me go back to VS Code here. I hope I've written the template already. Yes. So I have. So I've taken an input here as well. And we are going to see what logic we can implement for this. So there are many different logics for which you can use for this problem, but the one which I find the most simple that I'm going to share with you. Firstly, like usual, let's calculate the size of this vector, the array, whatever. So let's calculate the size. Yeah, it's nums itself. Okay. Now the approach that I like using is I am going to run a for loop again here, and then I'm going to check at every index where if I can find a zero. If I do find a zero at any index, then I'm going to push all the indexes which come later one step ahead. So it's a little tricky to understand in words, but I think I have an image here. Okay, so this was the array initially, and this is how I want it to look. Okay, so now with the help of my for loop, if I come across the zero here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all these numbers one step ahead. Okay, so I'm going to push these numbers one step ahead so that this zero goes at the end. So this is basically the indexes. I'm going to push the zero at the end. And what we need to do is all the other numbers, they need to come one step ahead. That's it. Okay. So I'll write that logic. Let's see if that works. So again, using a for loop. So that is why I said before that using like a standard way of writing your for loop always helps. So I'm iterating through the entire array. And then I'm going to use the if condition to check if it's a zero, because we need to only push zeros. And yeah, the condition was the sequence of other numbers should not change. Yeah. So we are going to only look for zeros. And when we encounter one, we need to simply push all the other numbers one step ahead. Okay, I've messed the bracket here. Okay. Now with this if condition, what I'm going to do, I'm going to push all the numbers that come after zero ahead. For that, again, I'm going to need a for loop. So again, we are using for and for, we are using nesting. So not the best approach for this, but yeah, it's easy to understand, that's for sure. I'm going to start with I because we want to push all the numbers that come after zero. We do not want to change the order in any way. So starting with I, okay? So j till the end, and let's increment j. Yes. And now what we're going to do, how we are going to push again ahead. So for that, what I am doing is nums j is going to be j plus 1. So I'm assigning nums j the value which is ahead of it. Yeah, like this. Now we are done with this logic. Now we are going to put that 0 at the end. So nums n minus 1 this time. Just putting that 0 at the end, because there can be n number of 0 in that particular array. So we need to put it like this. Also now, because we have pushed every number one step ahead, we need to decrement our I and n like this. So it's a very important step. Many make mistakes here. See, we have pushed all the elements that came later one step ahead. So again, if we increment the 4, then we are going to miss one element. So for because that should not happen, we need to decrement I and n and then move ahead. Okay. Okay, we've done with the logic. Now we are just going to simply print our array. So it's a void function view. So we can simply print it here itself. Again, the same things that we are learned, when you are good with the basics, then you do not need to worry about them again and again. I think I've already calculated. No, I think I need to do it again because we have also decremented the size of n. So we need to again calculate here the nums of size. Then I plus the same loop again and again. We are just trying to print the array after pushing all the zeros. I think this will be good. Okay. Now let's run. I hope we do not get any errors. Yes. So let me show you what was the input. So there was two zeros and one. This is one of the test case on lead code. And when I tried this problem initially, this was the test case where I got a lot of errors. So I took this test case here. And as you can see, we have printed the right order. We have pushed both the zeros back. So I think we've successfully completed this problem as well. Now moving ahead, one of my favorite problems and a bit not that easy, but yeah, it's a very good problem on beginner level, which is best time to buy and sell stocks. So this is a easy level problem. Okay, so we are again given a nums array as input, the drill as you know. Now the thing is, the index of this array is going to basically represent the day, and the value is going to represent the value of a particular stock. So there's a particular stock in the market, and then at one particular day its value is 7, on other day it's 1, on other day it's 5. So this value basically represents the value of that stock at that day. So if you have a little knowledge about buying and selling stocks, you can make the best and most profit when you buy it when the stock is at its lowest price and when you sell it at the highest price, right? So we need to do the same thing. We need to find in a way that where we can buy it at a best price and we can sell it at the best price as well. Okay, so let's see what I have for this problem. Yes, so this is the best time to buy and sell stocks. So if you just look at this diagram, it's very easy to tell, which is the best time to buy. When you are talking about buying a stock, you're going to look at a value which is least. Okay, so I'm going to look at this value, say, which is 1, which is the least value. And when I want to sell, I'm going to look at the peak, so which is 6. Okay, I cannot buy at 8 and sell at 1. That will be worst, right? Also, I cannot buy at 6 and sell at 5. You cannot sell before buying, right? So you need to keep that condition in mind, that you need to buy first and then sell. You need to look for max profit. Okay, so this is the implementation part that we'll see later. Okay, so this is going to be our problem 3. I've taken my input, I've taken the template. Now first let's discuss the logic that we are going to implement. Let me come back. Okay, so these are the 3 steps basically which will be used for getting our output. First is, okay, first is track the minimum prices so far. Okay, so as I said, when it's time to buy, you want to see the minimum price, right? So first thing is track the minimum price so far. So this is the table for it to track the minimum price. Firstly, we need to consider that the price is infinity because we need to find minimum for first initialize it to infinity, and then we need to keep comparing. So now initially at day 1 and when the price is 7, at this day the price is 1, and the minimum here is 7. So we need to choose minimum of these two values and choose one. So basically, for all of it, for all these values, we need to choose a day which is going to be a best buy. For every individual day, we need to choose what's going to be a best buy. So at this 8, this is the first day. So this itself is going to be the best buy. It doesn't have any other previous options, right? So at this 1, it has option of 8 and 1. So of course it's going to choose 1. Okay. At this 5, it has option of choosing 1 or 5. But of course the best buy is going to be 1. So for every individual day, we need to find a day for best buy. So first let's implement that part and then we'll see later what's the second step. Okay. So coming back to lead code, I'm sorry, VS code. So int n, again the same things again and again, but yeah, it's important. So prices of, I'm calculating the size first. Okay. Now, as I said, let's write the default conditions as well. So if the array is empty or something, then we can simply return from here and we can just give the profit to be 0. So this is just the default condition that comes if we are given something like this. Now let's write the logic of the first step that I said. Also, we are going to need another vector here because we need to store the best by value for each bar. So for doing that, we'll need another vector. So this is how you initialize a vector. A little different from arrays, but it's the same thing. So I'm naming it best by, and let's give it the same size. And I'm firstly initializing it with int max. I'm doing that because I need to find a min value and max is the maximum possible value, right? So I'm initializing it with max. So when I compare, I do not lose any value. Okay. Okay, I'm done with that. Now let's see how I'm going to get the best by value. Again, let's use this for loop here. I'm going to iterate. I'm starting with index r is equal to 1 because for the first one, the value is not going to change, okay, because it does not have any preceding values. So its best by is going to be the first day. So let's start with 1, okay, and then we're going to iterate till end as usual and I plus plus, okay. Now here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the value of best by in this vector that I've initialized now. And I'm going to find the min value. So as we compared it on the bar graph that I showed, I'm doing the similar thing here. I'm calculating the min from best by, just a minute. So best by of I minus 1 because we need to compare it with the previous one and the prices of I minus 1. So prices is the array that has the value, the daily value. So this is how we need to do it. I think, let me see where's the problem. Yeah. So min of best, I have everywhere made the same mistake. Okay. Okay, it's fine now. And this is how we are going to fill up our array best by with the values of the best by for that particular day. I think I have a diagram for that as well. Yeah, like this. So these are the values and this is going to be the min. So for this 7 days, 7 is the best buy. For 1, 1 is the best buy. For 5, 1 is the best buy. And for 3 again, 1 is the best buy. So this is going to be, this is how the array of a best buy is going to look. So we are done with the step 1. Now let's see step 2, which is calculate possible profit for each day. Now we know what is the day to best day to buy the stock. Now we know the best day. Now, if we know the best day, the only thing that is left is we need to calculate the profit. And when we get the profit for every day, we can simply find the maximum profit and return that value. So only these two steps are remaining now. And I think this was the most important step, the first thing where you know which is your best day to buy. And then simply after that, you calculate the profit and return the value which is maximum among all the profit values. Okay. So I'll first write that part now. Okay, so this loop is done here. Now the next step is compute the minimum price up to each day. So again, we are going to need a for loop. So for int 1, I'm starting again with 1 because we know that value is not changing. It doesn't have any preceding value. Okay, so now I'm going to again make the update. Okay, now I think we are done with this part, and here we are just going to calculate the profit. So profit we need to calculate for every bar. So let's start with 1 itself. Also, we are going to return max profit, and initially max profit, let us keep our max profit to 0 because there is chance that we do not make any profit. So in that case, we need to have this initialized to 0 so that we can return 0. Okay, so I've made my loop from int I is equal to 0, I less than n, and I plus plus. And now we need to find the value of max profit. Now this can be done in 2 lines as well. First, you can find a profit uh, for every bar, and then you can find the maximum of it. But I think we can do it in this one single line. So let's do that way itself. I'm missing my semicolon here. Okay. So max profit, for that I'm using this function max. So the variables that you saw, I've used min here, I've used max here. They can be used with this field limits wala library. So you need to include this before using that. Also, you need to include vector when you are solving problems related to vector. When we were doing arrays, we did not need that. Okay, arrays do not need any special library. So let's come back wherever max. So max of max profit. So we are going to compare the previous values of max profit. And if we get a value which is bigger than that, then we're going to replace basically. So we are comparing it with max profit itself. And then we are comparing it with prices. So prices was our initial wala array which we were given, and minus the best buy wala thing. Basically this much part is going to this much part is going to calculate the profit, and this we are going to store it in max profit, and we are going to compare if we get a bigger value of max profit, and if we get it, we store it in max profit again. Okay. Okay, so best buy, and this will be I think we've made some mistake somewhere. Let's see. No, I think it's right. It's right. Okay, now we need to simply return the value of max profit, and I'm going to return it from here after the completion of the loop, of course. So return max profit. Yes, so I think everything looks good. We can run and check. Let me clear this previous outputs so we can clearly see that. Okay, now let's run. The max profit is 5. Okay, I think it's the right answer. 5 is the max profit. Let me check here. Yes. So this was the first table I showed you, and this second table is about max profit. So as you can see, this from this column, 5 is our max profit. So we are getting the right answer from here. So we have very easily, in a very understandable way, implemented this problem. So if you want, you can paste this much part on lead code and check. So with this, I think we have completed 3 problems. These were the 3 problems that I planned to share today. Also, there are very good and amazing problems on lead code that you can practice. I think I can share that PDF also. So these are the problems. Also, the another concept is two-dimensional arrays. Now, it's a completely separate topic, and there are very good questions on lead code of two-dimensional array as well. So I thought that topic is vast and it should be covered in a different session. So I think for today, that is from my side on arrays. So if you have any feedback or any questions, so I'm open to that. So please.
Everything was, I think, clear.
So if anyone does not have any doubt or anything, I think I'm done for today. We can end.
If anyone has any question, they can ask, or if not, then we can end the session.
Also, if you have any feedback, I would like to hear because this was like first time for me to do something like this. So if any feedback or anything, please.
Oh, I think Sejal, we should stop, and the session was great.
Okay, okay. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you.